All right. I would like to welcome a fellow rebel soul to our magazine, Raye Zaragoza. Super excited to talk with Ray, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you grew up in Manhattan, which is
Mhm.
often described as the center of the capitalist universe. Um, what was that experience like for you? Creatively and personally.
Oh, yeah. I love answering questions about growing up in New York because it was definitely a very unique experience. I think New York taught me work ethic. New Yorkers are very hard workers. You have to be to like survive there. It's crazy. It's a crazy environment there. I grew up in a studio apartment with five people, and it also taught me creativity because I didn't have a backyard and I didn't really have access to nature. And so a lot of, the like whimsical parts of my life were like in my imagination. And I was very much, you know, I had this little corner in our apartment that was all mine. And I would like turn it into like a poetry studio and just kind of like create little like scenes in my head. And I was always trying to be as creative as possible with like the limited space that we had in that studio apartment. And so, what I didn't have as a kid was like nature and growing up and becoming, more in touch with um who I am. I think nature has been such a big part of my life, but growing up in New York, it was such a different experience. And so New York taught me work ethic and it taught me you know, creativity in small spaces, but it also was a very like even though it's like a big and exciting place, it had a lot of limitations that in my adult life I've like learned to expand, especially with like getting in touch with nature.
So, what about when at 14, still a really young age, you move across the country to the West Coast, landing in Los Angeles? So, what part of the city did you live in, and where are you based now?
Yeah, so now I'm based in the Valley, like in Studio City area. But when I first moved out here, we were on the west side. I went to Beverly Hills High School, and my parents, we lived in like a one-bedroom apartment in Beverly Hills with, my whole family, and they were very smart. My parents, like they wanted to get a small apartment in a really good school district. So we really were not like all the other kids that I went to high school with in Beverly Hills, but I had access to the same things they did. And so I had access to a really good public school, and our public school also had a really good theater program. And so my parents were very smart. They were like, we could live somewhere else and live in a bigger space, but we want to give our kids the best education possible in public school. And so, yeah, we started out in Beverly Hills, and now I'm out here in the Valley.
That's a really unique story because you just don't hear that much. But like you said, really, really smart. Because generally, when you grow up with kids that have seen their parents have seen success, they're taught how to get there. And
Right.
and people that don't grow up with that really struggle to find their way. So that's really a great story, and kudos to your parents for doing that. And they're a very talented group. I think you come from a family of actors and musicians, so which is interesting. Your siblings also involved in acting, and you do some acting and all kinds of things that you're very involved in a lot of different things. But when you moved to LA, was that driven then from the New York to LA move? Was it driven by creative opportunity, or did they just already have their mind set on Beverly Hills and say, let's just
Yeah.
go?
It actually all started, well, my father is from California and he always wanted to come back. But my sister actually, she got into UCLA that year for musical theater. And so my family wanted to stay close to my sister. We're like a pack. We travel together. We like to stay close. And so we all came out to Los Angeles because my sister got into UCLA and so she wasn't far away. And and yeah, that was pretty much the motivation, but I think it was a really good move for all of us, even though at the time, as a 14-year-old, it was super hard to like leave my friends.
Yeah, I bet. But yeah, there could be worse places that you could go than
Yeah, exactly,
LA, you
exactly.
know. And it's a great place. In the entertainment industry, it's kind of the center of the universe for that. New York's pretty good too, but I think LA is
Yeah.
really the place to be.
I
So
agree.
really, really cool. So I want to get into your music a little bit. So
Mhm.
I have been really taking a deep dive, and I've created a playlist that of the songs I really love. A couple playlists actually already, and
Awesome.
you've got just a beautiful and powerful voice. So, and I think the voice is so important in making it in music. I mean, that's a real starting point. I mean, there's lots of artists that didn't have great voices, let's say Bob Dylan and so forth, but
Mhm.
some of your influences like Joni Mitchell, just
Mhm.
incredible voice, right? So, and then to top it off, you are just a great songwriter. And you know, I've really listened. I've probably listened to every song that you've got on Spotify between 5 and 10 times. In that way you can really get into the songwriting. And it's
Yeah.
just amazing. The musicality, the music writing and the lyrics are just top notch. So I became a big fan, and I got real excited about interviewing you. It's not like I don't interview just people I like their
Mhm.
music, but once in a while you find somebody that you really gravitate towards what they're doing, and you're one of those people.
Thank you. That's amazing to hear.
And when did you first realize your voice could be a vehicle for both art and impact?
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a good question. And thank you so much. It's like so wonderful to be interviewed by someone and talk to someone who's really done their research and knows my music so well, because that's also not always the case, and that's fine too. Like sometimes I'm interviewed by people who just have listened to a song or two. So it's really nice to get to talk to someone who's such a fan. And so thank you. And yeah, it was in 2016, so it's been almost 10 years of really harnessing and understanding the power of protest music. And it wasn't really an intentional thing that happened. I kind of fell into it. I've always been like a kind of a rebel soul. I've always been someone who's really leaning into injustice and always like asking questions and getting curious. And you know, in school, growing up, always I was just like the person to speak up or the person to just to fight for what's right. Even in the small ways as a kid. And so and also coming from such a diverse background, my dad being of indigenous descent and my mom being from Japan, so being an immigrant, I've always been aware of things that maybe other people aren't if you're not a part of those groups. And so in 2016, when everything was happening with the No Dapple movement and Standing Rock, it was really an accident that I wrote that song. I was just so upset about everything happening, and writing a song about it was the most natural thing for me. And then I uploaded it onto Facebook, and within, a couple of days, it had gone like a little bit viral on Facebook, and it connected me to people all over the world. And in that moment, I realized how hungry we all are for music with a message. And from there, I just kind of found my calling and my passion, and I found my greatest way to communicate with the world. And so that's really how it all started. And then I wrote an album from that and have ever since, I write all kinds of music, music for television, love songs, protest songs. But the protest music is always like the heart and soul of everything I release. And um, I think for me, music is my way of making sense of things that don't make sense around me. And if we can put a poetic spin on a question or a curiosity or injustice that I see, it's almost just my way of being able to sleep at night, and be able to put some kind of expression and beauty around things that aren't so beautiful and that are causing me stress and pain. And so that's how it all started. It was in 2016, and I'm working on a new album right now that will be released in 2026 next year, which will be 10 years since that song, since In the River. And so it's been quite a journey.
That's awesome. As you can see, I'm moving now because I'm in Costa Rica, and we're just coming out of the rainy season. And
Oh,
I
wow.
just knew it was going to rain, and we've got the roof is it's really noisy when it rains. So I'm just setting up
All good.
downstairs where I've got a little
Life.
better situation here. So just bear with me. But yeah, let
Good.
me let me do this. We'll get Jimi Hendrix behind us here.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, great. Well, thank you for that. My favorite track of yours, there's a lot, but I love Bring That River Home.
Oh, thank
And you know
you.
what? I need to get this mouse working over here. Will you help me out with that? Or, I can do it over here. So Bring That River Home, great song. I'm gonna Yeah, both of them on. Shoot, maybe I'll just use this one. Sorry about that.
Oh,
I'm
good.
going to pull up one of my playlists. I'm just going to tell you now. What I want to say is for people who have not listened to Ray's music, I've created a playlist called Essential Raye Zaragoza, and these are my favorite songs. It's essential to
Oh,
me.
yes. Tell me, tell me. I
Yeah,
want to
I'm going to
know.
tell you what they are. This is close to an order, but from top to bottom, they're all favorites. So, um, who says that's not American is the
All
song
right.
that brought me to you, and the fact that it was so boldly done in the promo, it
Mhm.
really I knew I wanted to find out more about your music, and I think that's a great promo, and hopefully you can keep that going,
Mhm.
that type of vibe, and then Bring That River Home, American Dream,
Mhm.
Joy Revolution, so
Mhm.
cool.
Thank
Uh,
you.
the It Girl is really cool. I like Lost with You, Fight for
Oh,
You,
yeah.
Where I Want to Be, uh,
Nice.
Into the Wild. Soft Season, your newest release, is really nice. It's a really nice song. I really like it. Pretty beautiful song. And then Fight Like a Girl, and then Red, which is really an intense song. Just
Hmm.
wow, the subject matter on that. And then Enough, and then In the River. Those are my 14 favorite songs, but I've got a bigger list of favorites that I've saved on Spotify, but that's the playlist, which is taken from that. Anyways, I want to get to your influences. You've cited Joni Mitchell, Carole King, Joan Baez, and Buffy St. Marie as major influences. Now, Buffy is also native,
Hmm.
and she did some protest music too. And I was just wondering, have you ever considered covering Universal Soldier? It feels like a song you could bring new urgency and depth to.
Mm. Yeah, to be honest, I don't cover a lot of music. I probably should do more cover songs, but I don't know what it is about me. Whenever I sit down to learn another song, I just start writing a song. And I'm really, really not great at learning songs. I'm constantly in this, I'm stuck in creative mode and I'm like, it's funny, like I was talking to like one of my cousins about like, some of us are better learners and some of us are better doers. And so like some of us get stuck in the learning and some of us get stuck in the doing. I get stuck in the doing. I'm really bad at like sitting down, like, you know what? I'm gonna like improve my guitar skills. I'm gonna learn something today. I'm gonna learn something new. I'm like, no, I just want to do more. So I keep creating more and more and more. And so that would be really cool. I'll have to look into that song, but to be honest, I don't cover a ton of music, but I'm hoping maybe for this next album I'm gonna cover something. But yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing to be so creative and not have to rely on doing any covers at all, even to fill out an album or something. A lot of artists need to do that once in a while. Sometimes it really works great, and other
Yeah.
times it doesn't. But I think anything you touched, especially like that, if your heart was into it, it would probably come out really, really good. Just my opinion.
Thank you.
But, so you're Japanese, Mexican, Native American, but interesting blend and background that you have and the places that you've lived. So that gives you such a broad spectrum. And I'm wondering, given the current political climate in the US and the heightened fears around immigration enforcement, how does it feel navigating daily life as a person of color right now? Somebody with brown skin having to deal with what's going on. Because I'm in Costa Rica. Now I'm an old white male. So
Mhm.
I'm not their target. But
Mhm.
my girlfriend is definitely brown skin, and we think about it when we want to go back to the States. And it
Mhm.
just, I'm sure you're seeing the same stuff I'm seeing online and some of the horrific scenes. And it's just crazy.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's absolutely awful. And I think a lot of people in my community, just in Los Angeles, are like trying to get out of the country. A lot of friends are wanting to leave and wanting to live somewhere else. I can totally see the appeal to that. But for me, I'm very passionate about the land here and being of indigenous descent, Akimel O'odham descent on my dad's side, from the Southwest. I feel very much like this is my home, and um, I'm as a songwriter and a creative person, and as just a human being, like there's only so much, of course, I can do, but I feel like what's helping me is caring for my like micro community, and if there's ever people in my micro community here, like where I live, and if there's anything I can do for people on a micro scale, I try to, or even I played a show um, during the protests, what's this, over the summer, and a couple people came to my show who were having to move back to Mexico because of all the ICE raids, and they were becoming fearful of staying in the country. And I got to sit down with them and like share space with them and talk with them and give them, you know, just some gifts to take home with them. And like to me, what I can do best is to write music, spread awareness, and take care of my micro community on that level and really just try to be there for those that are around me. And it's really scary, everything that's happening, but I think like I understand everyone's impulse to want to leave. But for me, it's like, no, I want to stay and I want to fight and I want to take care of my community because I'm very, as much as I'm critical and just detest the administration, I'm very passionate and, you know, like very, I'm trying to find another word to passionate, but really the word is passionate for the land and for the country itself in terms of the soil and the land that we're on. And so that's how I get through my day is to remind myself of the micro and the land itself. And that's what I'm fighting for. And my best way to do that is through music. And we all have our different ways of participating in the movement. But if I can provide comfort for people going through it, through songs and through community, that's all I can do.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, speaking of music, you have a new album coming out next year, and um, will you continue confronting these political and cultural issues on the new LP?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm so excited. I have a lot of songs on this new record that yeah, I'm almost like someone who can't like intentionally write a protest song. I don't sit down and I'm like, I'm gonna write a protest song today. Like it has to come from the the purest place in my soul and my gut. And there's just been so much happening that it's been unavoidable writing protest songs. And so this new record definitely has some protest music, and I'm really excited about it. We're deep in the trenches of writing and recording right now, and so I can't wait for it to be done and to show it to the world. So we'll see if everyone likes it.
Yeah, I'm excited. What month next year do you think it will drop?
I don't know. I don't know, but probably next summer, around next summer.
Cool, cool. Well, let us know. We'll definitely be following you on that. And I started out in music doing protest music as well and writing
Oh,
protest songs. It wasn't lucrative to me, and I switched gears, but still doing a lot of work in that field, but just not in songwriting any
yeah.
longer. But let's go into your business,
Mhm.
Acumen. I mean, you are somebody who has been very successful beyond your number of streams. You're bringing in a good amount of gross revenue, I think, compared to a lot of DIY artists. And when I followed you on TikTok, you just come across as business savvy, which is rare and refreshing among activist artists. You don't see that a whole lot. A lot of
Mhm.
times they're just turned off to the world. I mean, they're unable to operate in a capitalist society, which we're in, whether or not we like it, right? We
Exactly.
like it to be more of a tender capitalist or more of a compassionate capitalism, I sometimes
Right. I
say.
like that compassionate capitalism. That's great.
It's out there. As a matter of fact, my company is a B Corp. If you get a chance, you might Google that, B Corp, and we also donate to 1% for the planet. And I
Mm,
noticed you have a lot of songs about the environment, which is
yeah.
great. But so I'm just curious. So you've
Yeah.
mentioned you have a really good income as an independent artist, even six figures. Can you can you briefly break down your revenue streams kind of from top to bottom? Where's
Yeah,
the, and this is for other indie artists.
totally.
The group that I manage has a ton of indie artists. Like we come together and we play private events, right?
Mm,
But in that band, everybody's their own artist. They're releasing music. We come together, we play covers for billionaires and those kind of clients. But
yeah.
then they're doing their thing. And I think for people like that to hear from
Sure.
somebody like you, how are you actually doing that bottom line?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm someone who I think talking about money should not be taboo. And I think that a lot of artists and people in general, like they shy away from that because it feels like inappropriate or it feels whatever. But I think that that's what keeps us, you know, in this place of being a struggling artist. If we're not willing to talk about it and willing to learn from others and get into the nitty-gritty of it. And I'm very passionate about that. And I hope one day to write a book about being a DIY artist and being like a middle class artist and realizing that you don't have to be signed to a major record label or struggling. Like there is a middle ground, and I'm very blessed to be like a middle class artist, and I'm very passionate about trying to like grow the middle class in music because I think that a lot of people think that you're either famous or you're broke. And there really is a middle ground, but it's rare and it's just you have to build it yourself and you can't really follow anyone else's blueprint. You have to truly find what works for you. Um, and so like I'll break it down. I think like the biggest thing I'm so passionate about for DIY artists is diversification. You have to have a very diverse income streams because you can't rely on one thing. And I think it's really easy. And I did the same thing when I first started playing music, that you just want to see down the barrel and be like, okay, I'm going to make music by selling music. I'm going to make music by selling songs. And it's just not how it works. Honestly, the things that all of you probably see on my social media or TikTok or this or that, the things that probably get me the most outward attention are not the things that make me the most money. A lot of that is actually a labor of love and a huge investment. And the protest music is a labor of love and it's a huge investment of money, really, to make records is very expensive. That's all very expensive. And so, really the things that you see down the middle are not the things that really keep my lights on. I do a lot of music writing for television, like sync licensing, some of which is music I release under Raye Zaragoza, and some of which is not. So a lot of that, it's like getting into a room and writing music that like it's not always like, oh, like what am I moved by today, or how do I feel, or what do I want to write? Like a lot of it's like, okay, what does the client want? What does this television show need? And so I put on more of like my service industry hat, and I'm like, how can I be of service as a songwriter and a musician? And how can I, do something that maybe isn't as much like my soul fulfilling music, but it's still going to make me some money and it's something that I enjoy and I love. So there's that. I also worked for 3 years on a kids' TV show, which was amazing. And I got to, make money doing that. I also have a Patreon. I love Patreon and I'm very passionate about artists having Patreon accounts. Over the past 7 years, I've had Patreon. It's gone up and down in terms of my income, but it's always been really reliable. I also tour. I play events. Some of them are like the headliner, Raye Zaragoza. Some of them I'm opening for people, or some of them are like private events. So I do that. And yeah, I mean, and I have some like radio and publishing royalties as well. So I think like I've been doing music now for 10 years and I've gotten to this very sustainable place in the past few years, but it took like many years, like 5 to 7 years of planting seeds on all these diverse areas and like being patient enough to watch them grow and to know that, I always try to keep overhead pretty low. Like I love being a folk musician because it doesn't require a ton of frills. You can just really put a mic up, play a guitar, and sing a song, and you can have a master. But that's pretty much the breakdown of all the things that keep my lights on in my life. But some years are better than others, and it's just about learning how to, one, be very smart with spending and saving so that you're not setting yourself up for failure. So that you make sure you have like a nest egg in case it's a bad month. But also, number one is diversifying and having multiple streams of income and allowing them to grow, ebb and grow, and see like where they all go. And like some years, one thing might be bigger than the other, and putting effort into all of them at all times.
That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So it sounds like sync licensing might be bringing in the most revenue for you. That was at the top of your list.
Yeah,
And
sync licensing, live performance, and publishing. Yeah.
good for you. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned about being a folk artist and how easy it is just to play guitar and sing. And I know in your earlier recordings, that's what I heard. It
Yeah.
was, guitar and voice, very simple. But I started to really gravitate towards the songs that had more production and the full instrumentation. And still today, you heard that list of songs that I really love the most. And a lot of those are fully produced with a band and
Yeah.
several instruments. And one thing is, what instruments do you play? Is it right now just guitar? On your records, are you playing anything else, or are you bringing in musicians?
I don't play a ton on my records. I'm not gonna lie. I do play guitar sometimes, but a lot of times I bring in other musicians because I know my strengths. And if I can have really incredible musicians come in and play, like I'll have them play. But I do play guitar on a lot of songs. But I play guitar and I play a little bit of piano. But I'm really more of a vocalist and a songwriter. I'm definitely not like a very virtuoso, like technical musician, and I'm okay with that. I really want to get better at all my instruments, but I'm also like so grateful to work with producers and musicians that are so incredibly talented that I just kind of want to step aside and like let them do their thing.
Well, that's
Um,
another part of your business smarts because
yeah,
when it all comes down to it, those recordings are the basis of a musical career.
yeah,
What you record in the studio, the songs that you write and how they come across is the basis for everything, I believe.
right,
People always
yeah,
talk
and
about the
yeah,
images of artists or,
yeah.
they talk about all these different things, but say the Rolling Stones, I mean, they're from my era, like,
Mhm.
they wrote hit song after hit song, so did the Beatles. Right. And so did you look at it, it really didn't matter that they had this bad boy image. It might have brought in a few sales, but it all starts with the music, and people don't talk about that enough. And you have to be smart enough, yeah, to do the things that you're best at and make the record as good as you can. So
Exactly. And make the experience like in the studio as smooth as possible. Like, there are songs I play guitar on, but I am not as locked in as other guitar players, like session guitar players. And sometimes it can slow down in the studio to have me play on every song. So I'll play on a few, but I also I'm it's kind of funny because there will be songs that like I've written in the room, but I didn't pick up the guitar in the songwriting session, and I didn't pick up the guitar when we recorded it. So then I will talk to my guitar teacher, and I'll send him the recording, and he'll teach me how to play my own song.
that's
Um,
great.
and then I'll fully like create a live version of it that I'll play live, and then you can come live and see me play it. But I'm more comfortable as a live performer than as a recording artist, and so I love recording vocals. I'm not as passionate about recording guitars, but I am very passionate about playing my songs and playing them with a guitar and vocal. And I just, yeah, it's like nice to be honest about that because I think sometimes people will tell me like, "Wow, your guitar playing sounds so good on the record," and I'm like, "Oh, that's not me. Like, it's actually this person, and they did great." Um,
Yeah, there's
and that's
no room for error on recordings, in my opinion. Like it
yeah,
has to
it's
be
so
perfect.
hard.
When you go out and play live, it's a whole different type of thing.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
it's so forgiving live. I feel like,
For sure. The sound's bouncing around the walls and people don't
yeah.
hear everything. I often get back from playing a live show and somebody will have recorded it and they'll put it up on social media and I'm just like, oh no. I can hear that every bit of
Mhm.
pitchiness that might have been coming from my voice or whatever, anything that isn't perfect,
Aw.
it's really, really tough.
We're
But
like our own harshest critic always.
well, yeah, we are. But
Yeah.
Now, when you write this new album, are you thinking about taking it on tour afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been talking a lot about like in interviews about how I'm not as passionate about being on the road anymore. And as much as I don't want to be on the road as much as I was before, I still love touring and I definitely will tour on this album. But there were a few years in there in my 20s where I was pretty much on the road all the time. Like I was on the road like 8 months, 10 months out of the year. And I loved that. But I'm not trying to do that anymore. And I really like being home. I like going to the farmer's market every Sunday and I like going on hikes every Saturday and I like having routine. And yeah, I've like kind of reached this point in my life where like my career means a whole lot to me. It's my life. It's like my child at this point. But I also really, really value home and being things that are outside of my career as well. And so that's why I wrote Soft Season. It's kind of like my friends keep saying I'm in my soft girl era. But it's also like I'm trying to prioritize my health and I've had some like health things come up. So it's like really important to me to not stress my body out in ways that's unsustainable that can happen on the road.
Yeah, you talked about the power of waking up early and how it sets the tone for a productive day. And I thought that was interesting because most musicians don't wake up early.
No.
I went through 30 years of doing a band and I've always wanted to wake up early. Right now I wake up at 5 a.m. I live right
Wow.
down from the beach. I'm in the water surfing at probably by 6 and I
Amazing.
do
I
it
love
every
that.
day. And I won't take shows that are late shows anymore, but I'm not doing it anymore as that part of my thing is not a musical career. I'm managing a band that is my main source of income. But
Cool.
I totally understand about getting up early, and it's such a paradox, such a difficult thing because
It is.
when you go out on tour, you're going to have to shift that
Again.
that
Yeah.
whole thing up a few hours where because you have to leave yourself that time and your body has to shift into that
Mhm.
other sleeping pattern. And for me,
Yeah.
like I think I took a lot out of me. Like when we were touring and we
Mhm.
went all over the world in like 126 countries, I think now. And basically, it created havoc for my sleep. And I still to this day struggle to get enough sleep, but I'm just trying to stay in the same mode. So I thought it was really interesting, though, a young artist talking
Mhm.
about sleep. And that just shows all the common sense that you've got going on, along with the talent, along with the fact that you're left leaning and a protest singer. I think it's really a great combination. Very, very rare.
So I
Um,
think like I'm very passionate about like we have to go our own way, like I think that there's a lot of things that are a lot of contradictions is existing in this world in general, but especially being a musician, like, you know, musicians can get on stage and say how much they're environmentalists all day, but tour buses and planes and plastic bottles and all the things that are a huge part of the touring industry are incredibly horrible for the environment. And so there's a lot of like dissonance with just our existence as human beings in this like capitalist America. And also like I try to like be gentle with myself of like what are the ways that I can do better and what are the ways that like, it's yeah, it's interesting, right? Like existing in this place of like Spotify has been really exposed for not doing good things and for being horrible to artists, but yet we still have to put our music on there to get it out to the world. And, as indie artists, like, do we really want to take something down from a place that's like, the main place people listen to music? And so it's all about balance, really. And like I'm always posting like, okay, yeah, I'm on Spotify, sure, but find me on Patreon and support me directly because that's how indie artists sustain. And so I'm always trying to redirect and like exist in this, capitalist environment because that's what we live in. We live in America, but then how can I do a DIY spin on it that's more sustainable and more grounded and just constantly trying to find the middle because you know, it's hard to like to want to be perfect, and so we're not going to be perfect. So how can we do our best and like find the middle, you know?
Absolutely. It's funny because I feel the same way you do about the pros and cons of Spotify. Probably
Yeah.
more so on the pros, but I certainly see all the cons. But I
Yeah.
know that a lot of artists without streaming just wouldn't have their music out there. Like you have to put
Yeah.
like if you went back 50 years to when I started out And
Mm.
there was just people getting signed to major label acts. And I was covering them through my magazine back then at that point as a teenager. And I had a band at that time. But we
Mm.
just had a feeling we weren't going to get a record deal, but we thought we were viable. And
Yeah.
there wasn't anywhere to go. Now, if we could have released our stuff and done DIY type of thing, we would have done it, but that just didn't exist now. Now
Yeah.
you can get your music
Have more
out there.
power.
I mean, I
Hmm.
just got my check today from streaming, and it's so minimal, right?
Right.
It was like $200 for,
$200 you didn't have before, you know?
right, I'm glad that my music is out there and
Yeah.
it'll be there it permanently, hopefully. So I really appreciate Spotify for that, but I just wish they could be more fair with the artists. It's just a quandary, but we could spend all day talking about Spotify, but in general, I'm super glad to have it. I just wish it could change a little, and I'm sure you probably feel
Or
similar.
totally. And I think it's cool to have things like Bandcamp and Patreon in ways that like are a little bit better on the artist. And so constantly like trying to tell people like, like, okay, listen on Spotify, but if you can, like try these other platforms as well. Um, and yeah, I mean this I think it's easy to complain. I try not to complain too much because, I try to roll with the punches and be like water because when I complain and I try to push against things, obviously like Spotify and streaming, it's like scary and AI is scary and all these things, but I'm also like, I can't change it. I can't change what's happening. So how can I roll and learn and adjust and like when the pandemic happened, I had like this moment of like, oh my gosh, I had all these amazing tour dates coming up. I had big festivals coming up for that summer, like the biggest tour year I was ever going to have. I was 26. I was like, I'm in my prime. I'm like, I'm about to like hit it big right now in 2020. And that all was taken away from me. And I could have taken that time to feel bad for myself and to wallow and to be like, I'm sad. This sucks. And I did. I let myself feel that way for about 2 hours. And then I was like, I looked in the mirror and I was like, Ray, how are you going to adjust? Because you can't change this. How are you going to roll? And that's when I started launching my Patreon. And actually, I had the Patreon beforehand, but I leaned into my Patreon and I leaned into online concerts and I just immediately adjusted. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna boo-hoo about this horrible thing happening in the world because it's happening whether or not I like it. And if I complain about it, um it's gonna like block my the water to flow through to what's next. And so that's why I try to really like it's so easy to get stuck in this headspace of like, okay, well, this sucks and that sucks and this sucks in the music industry and in the world. But I'm like, okay, how can I harness that? Let like water flow through me and create beauty and create sustainability and poetry through it. And so that's how I get through my day.
That's great. We don't have much time left,
Mhm.
so I wanted to skip forward a few questions here and ask you more about the new album.
Mhm.
So, well, since you released Hold That Spirit, that was 2023, right? You've put out 5 singles, and I was wondering if those will be part of the new LP.
No, the new album will be all new music. Nothing you've heard yet.
Wow, wow, okay. Because those
Yeah.
are really good songs. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, just incredible. But they're out there anyways, right? So you don't have to
Exactly.
put them on. You don't have to put them on the album.
Yeah.
So I have just a couple things I wanted to chat with you, but off camera for maybe a couple minutes. And
Okay.
I want to make sure I stick to this time frame today. So I'm
Thank you.
going to pause or stop the recording. But
Okay.
before we go, I just want to thank you very much. And I want to encourage everybody that's watching this, whether there's 2 people or whoever knows how many people are going to see this, but they should go and dive into your music as quickly as possible because it's really legit stuff and I love it. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for joining me, and I'll be right back on the other side here with you.